Hi, welcome in. I'm Kylie Sweeto of CGI. I'm happy you're joining us for this webcast brought to you by CGI, featuring Volkswagen and a Forrester analyst. Today, you're in for an insightful discussion as we delve into what happens when one of the world's biggest automakers and a global IT services leader stop working side by side and start building as one. Looking forward to a great discussion, and I'll pass the baton to Bill.
Well, thank you very much, Kylie. It's really great to be here, and I'm looking forward to the discussion, which we think is an important one, right? About the possibilities of partnership between service providers and their customers. I know we talk about this a lot, right? It's a subject of great interest to our clients at Forrester Research. But there's more to it than just words, right? And we're going to talk today about how to make that real. And no better examples, or few better examples exist than the case of Marvin. But you may be wondering, what is Marvin, right? And well, just to make it very clear, Marvin is the name that has been chosen to refer to a new independent unit dedicated to software development that has been created in the context of a 10-year contract between CGI and Volkswagen for the exclusive use of Volkswagen. And there's a lot of issues we're going to get into today, so let's get right to it with our first question. I guess you could argue, and I certainly would agree with this based on what we've seen, it's a timely topic and one that really gets to the heart of what it means to be a partner between, let's say, or established partnership between service company and a customer. And we'll explore some of the issues associated with that today. But, in starting out, and I'd like to turn to you, Cornelius, representing Volkswagen, of course. What specific technology and operational challenges led you to consider this type of arrangement? Which I agree, in my experience at least, it's somewhat intimate, right? And certainly more than the typical partnership that we see. So maybe you could tell us and help us set it up as to how this came to be.
Yeah, thanks, Bill, and hello to everyone. Yes, we have some major issues we want to tackle with this kind of partnership that you introduced with Marvin, so our corporation. One of the top topics is definitely the modernization of our IT landscape. It's really huge with thousands of legacy systems, and we want to tackle that problem and really reduce complexities there. So we also need, and the whole automotive industry needs this, so a big transformation process with faster processes, also more efficiency. And we really want to start with the IT there. It's very important for us. We want to lower IT operating costs, but of course, we want to handle also projects and products much more faster than in the past and reduce complexity by ages. So strengthening our global software competence is very important for us. So that's logical then to bring in one of the great partners in software development with CGI. And it's not a head start or a quick adopter in the case of we didn't know the company before. We had lots of good experiences, and that was a logical step in the way, you might say, to do this. And as you said, it's not a very typical one. It's a big time, really an age where we want to partner together. And that's why we want to start the initiative, or have started years ago, to strengthen our long-term competitiveness and the digital capabilities with a partner like CGI.
Okay, great. Well, one of the things that we have discovered, and I'm glad you asked or answered the question that why CGI, but our clients historically, in my experience, have, let's say, established a preference for not only technology expertise, right? Of course, domain expertise, but also vertical industry expertise, even when perhaps the services rendered weren't even that, vertical specific. And I'm just curious, how do you address that? And how did that desire, if you indeed felt that desire, influence the formation of this unit? And how do you maintain a balance between those poles, so to speak?
So definitely we need both experiences and both competences. That's exactly right, as you say. Maybe in the past that was different, but the automotive industry is so complex with those specific processes that we really need proven expertise on the automotive field. And on the other hand, also very important, really experts and guys that know their stuff about IT engineering, IT service, and all these kind of stuff. It's really necessary. So for it's a major strategic move to really bring together those competences. And as you already said, it's not like it's okay when it's on the paper. We really need to have the feeling that it worked out for long years already. And that's what we have there. So we have a long-standing successful collaboration already in the past. And this is why we said, okay, this is the next stop. And also we wanted to secure it in a way that we have a partnership that is really for the long run. So not the 100-meter sprint or something, but really for the long run to secure also newly coming up knowledge in the automotive processes, because they also change very rapidly. Example is software-defined vehicle. 10 years back, it was not that kind of a stuff or a topic, but now it is. Without that, you have no chance, and that's one of the points that comes on top of it. But to be honest, also some references from also other industries are important for us. So it's also interesting for us to get some feedback how other branches are acting on topics like IT, modernization of landscape. So this is also interesting, but the foundation is definitely a long partnership with automotive and also IT expertise.
I'm glad to hear you say that idea that you are looking for inspiration from other industries in addition to the automotive, which of course is not suffering for a lack of change, right? And challenge. We'll get into that. We see a lot now in our dealings with clients of our own, and the idea that, they want, as we said, vertical industry expertise along the domain, but they also want to have the best of both worlds, right? When it comes to, let's say, cost-effective service, right? They don't want to give up on that, but yet they want that trust. They want to be able to co-create, right? They want to be able to hold their vendors and suppliers, not necessarily at an adversarial arm's length, right? But close and in a spirit of true collaboration. I'm just curious, like, all right, I know you say you worked with CGI, that you were no strangers to them, but nevertheless, how did you get this thing started? What was the process as to, how to make this go?
So
Cornelius, you have it?
actually,
Oh, go ahead,
yeah,
please.
so thanks, Bill. Yeah. So actually, we started with a lot of workshops, thinking about where do we want to go in future? What are common goals we have? What are the important things for Volkswagen? But also, what is what is bringing CGI to the party? And we focused around a very specific transformation topic we have. So we have a lot of included cooperation with business units, technical development, for example, developing, for example, the vehicles like we have in the back. And we wanted to discuss how we can transform this into the future, how we get the collaboration going. So what we had was really good workshops, and then looking for the solutions that will help us bring this partnership to a long run, as already mentioned. So it was not starting from a classical RFP approach. Of course, that was where we gained trust over the long years we had, of course, but it was now something, okay, how would a strategic partnership look like? What are the important goals? What are the common KPIs? What are the models we have? What is the governance model? So a lot of things to reach for our goals, common goals, to be really fast in developing, to have high quality, especially also in regarding to security, because that's a big topic for us.
I did want to follow up on something we talked about before, and that is, I mean, all right, look, there's been joint ventures in IT in the past, right? I mean, there's been, different kinds of partnerships, as I said, and it's not really common in my experience, but it happens. But I guess one of the, and it's really encouraging, I would say, that to know that you're involving senior management, right, in this interchange, which I think is important, right, to elevate it to the level of strategic impact. But I guess the question I would ask is, how do you know that it's working, right? I mean, we'll get into the specifics of billings and models in a moment. But I mean, how do you know that it's working and this spirit of cooperation is manifesting itself in tangible results?
Let me add on this one. So apart from a lot of things are KPIs, we also develop over the time and getting stronger there. This is always very important to have the figures right. But another topic was for me very interesting how I measure the success, because that was, Bill, what you try to recognize. And I look into, so I've really top management from Volkswagen coming in and seeing the progress really in the systems we develop within Marvin, and then really saying, wow, that is something that really changed how we are working. So it's really interesting to see the HR where we work together and the very close cooperation between business and IT that is happening within Marvin, actually. So we pulled it there together. And then you look into the system demos and you really see, oh, we really make a tremendous step forward. And it's like, it's also because some of the concepts were challenged. So I could have developed it. Typically, you say, okay, I get money for it, I develop it. But there was also feedback, no, this is not what the users need, because I recognize the process is a little bit different there. And then you see that it really comes to the point where top management of different brands of Volkswagen Group experience the system demo and then say, yes.
No, that's fantastic. I really want to double down on that, but that issue of working without a scope, I mean, it's really fairly, I don't know, radical, maybe too strong a word, but it's an exciting idea because as you know, I mean, a lot of relationships struggle with how to build in transformation into what is otherwise a standard, more or less managed services contract. But before I do that, but now it's back with a vengeance. And one of the things that's different this time.
The models and bring corporation together, take over responsibility in the right way. And we do this all over the world. So we need a partner that is also capable to do this. And that was one of the important aspects. And if you look into shoring, Bill, so classical things I know a lot of people did 10 years ago. We also, but if you really want to be very, very quick and fast with this, you need partners that can take over great complexity with a lot of different vendors and a lot of different topic, and then help us shoring this quickly, because this complexity hinders or helps or gets us struggling with the fastness of shoring, for example. And that's also something that CGI and Marvin is helping us a lot with. So reduce complexity and then implement our strategic goals with shoring.
No, that's pretty exciting. As I promised, I wanted to double down and get back to this question of managed services maturity. I believe you have alluded to this, the idea that maybe not, RFP based. I know we've heard about models of that type. In terms of delivery and pricing models, I mean, as an industry, the managed services industry, we've been through a series, right? Input based, time and materials, capacity, managed capacity or defined capacity, using teams now, and of course, output driven, and as well as outcome based, right? Which I believe, I'm just curious, how do you feel about that in the context of Marvin, and what does the maturity of this next generation managed service mean to you, and how do you manifest it in the context of Marvin?
We are sitting together in a decision board. We are looking at the contract.
Yeah.
The contract is flexible enough, and we are already always working in adaptations to it and putting additional points to it, like we do it now. For example, if the KPIs are not sufficient enough, we want more, we talk about this. So this is a little bit also with the partner structure, that the partnership we have aligns to the topics we want to solve. And that's a very interesting and cool way of doing it. And we're sitting together there actually also with colleagues from business of Volkswagen and colleagues from Ralph, really to move it forward in a way so that both sides, as you say, feel like being in the driver's seat and not some looking at the train that is going in the direction that you don't want to go.
One thing, it's interesting you say that, because I know that in some recent research we've done on the emerging AI
Mhm.
vendor ecosystem, I heard a lot of times like, oh yeah, time and materials is dead, but it's remarkable how many of our clients, still are bound up in that phenomena you described, right? Where they're still engaging time and materials basis on a staffing model. they can't envision or they can't gain the consensus to move, to alternative models that might have more potential power, right? More leverage, and so it's really hard to say that any of these models are disappearing, but certainly the trend is, as you say, toward more of an outcome orientation. But one thing I'd like to ask in terms of follow-on, and I think you alluded to this already, that clearly the cultural alignment is high, right? You guys are having a great time there with your meetings and cheering each other on and all that. I know that that doesn't happen in a vacuum. I mean, but it's been one of the major challenges, I feel like, in terms of having a successful relationship between a customer and a service provider, and probably given maybe not as much attention as it deserves, at least according to some of the survey data that we have, right? People tend to gravitate towards the cost, right? The expertise, the flexibility, but cultural alignment is key. And I guess it kind of begs the question of, how did you get to where you're at? I know you had the deal before, and you've been, that served to help. But I mean, what tangible steps have you taken, if any, to ensure that cultural affinity?
So first of all, to be honest, I said in the beginning that we had those workshops together, and one of the topics is we recognized as a first step, culture is very important. If you want to move on there, it is an important topic we have to discuss and have to look at. And so one thing is, of course, then that you put down some values or these kind of stuff. Okay, that's just an exercise. But what really happens is people are watching what is the leadership doing. And we had on all levels, we brought together the leadership. So my boss is Hauke Stars, the member of the board of IT of Volkswagen Group, and we brought her together with the CEO of CGI, and on all levels we tried to bring it together, and also really saying that we are role models how to work together. So building up trust, and that's what people see. If you I would say culture is easily back down. Yeah, in a way you can easily be a bad role model, but before, and that's what we are also focusing on. And if there are topics that the results from whatever side are a little bit in difficult range, so have to focus on at the starting point, and that's what we actually are doing and what we're living on all levels of cooperation we have there.